Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Before I do start, I just have a request for dua. My brother's father-in-law just passed away today, so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on him, to forgive him, to grant him Jannah. Amin. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Yani, subhanAllah, life, people have plans, but then you have no guarantees or assurances in life. The moment could come where you part from this dunya, ultimately breaking every plan that you have. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when our time comes, that we part this dunya in a way that's pleasing to Him Jalla wa ala. Ameen. So, brothers and sisters, tonight we have the Islamic Wills workshop. It's two parts. The first part will be talking a bit about the Islamic inheritance law. Of course, we're not going to go into a level that enables you to divide Islamic inheritances or to divide estates in accordance to Islamic law, because that requires a degree of expertise. What I'm going to show or share with you right now is, you know, uh, a degree of that field, a degree of that ilm and knowledge that you should be aware of to appreciate this field, and hopefully, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it motivates you to learn more and to further get involved in this field. So before I get into any of that, we're going to talk a bit about this part of the signs of Qiyamah, which is, and we have in many ahadith, the widespread ignorance among people towards the end of time, and that knowledge would be lost. Right? In the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إن الله لا يقبض العلم انتزاعا ينتزعه من العباد ولكن يقبض العلم بقبض العلماء حتى إذا لم يبق عالما اتخذ الناس رؤوسا جهالا فسئلوا فأفتوا بغير علم فضلوا وأضلوا. So the narration states that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not cause the loss of knowledge within the ummah by causing people to forget what they know. Rather, the loss of knowledge would become widespread within the ummah by the death of scholars. Thereafter, people would seek knowledge from those who do not have knowledge. Thus, those individuals giving the fatwa, giving direction, would mislead themselves and those who listen to them, subhanAllah. Now, this is something we're witnessing more and more as time progresses. Many scholars have passed away, subhanAllah. Those who are not on the same level as those ulama who died, rahimahumullah ajma'in. This narration, however, shares with us that aside from the ulama dying and there not being those individuals, replacing them on that same level of ilm, we have a general, you know, uh, distance from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This hadith, in order for you to understand it, you've got to imagine. This hadith gives you a degree of imagery. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, يدرس الإسلام كما يدرس وشي الثوب. Islam would fade away from the lives of people just as a garment that is excessively washed, it begins to fade away. Now, if you have a brand new garment, let's say a darker color, stark black, for example, brand new, let's say you bought two of them. One of them was tucked away, you never used it for an entire year. Whereas the other one, it was your daily, wear. Day in, day out, in the sun, you've washed it, a couple hundred times. And now at the end of the year, if we're to compare that garment that you've used and washed and it was in the sun excessively, its color would still be black, but it's a faded black. It might have a brownish, reddish tinge to it. It's not as sharp. You might have some, lines appearing in that fabric. And that difference becomes all the more clear when you compare the two garments together. The one that was unused, untouched, and put away, versus the one that you've been using day in, day out, it's faded. So look at the description of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Islam will fade away from the lives of people, which informs you that people will not just suddenly just say, forget Islam. They begin to basically drift away from Islam bit by bit by bit till they get to a point where Islam holds little to no reverence in their lives. They don't have an attachment to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their concern, their regard for Allah, the deen, it's of little to no importance. And we're witnessing that today, where people do have little to no regard. They've drifted away from the folds of Islam. They may remain Muslim in terms of their name and how they describe themselves, but in every other way, you find them virtually, not practicing the faith as one should. Subhanallah. The narration says, حتى لا يدرى ما صيام ولا صلاة ولا نسك ولا صدقة, until a time will come where people would not know what fasting is. Yani they wouldn't recognize fasting as being very important. What happens? They'll say, you know what? Allah knows this in my heart. I'm a mu'min deep here in my heart. People would not know what the fasting is. They would abandon the prayers. The Umrah and the Hajj would be of little to no importance to them. You have sadaqah, charity, giving will be of little to no importance, because now materialism and that general sense of, what's in my heart, Allah knows, I have a pure heart, a clean heart, that is more important, subhanAllah. The narration then says, and the book of Allah Azza wa Jal would be taken away, and not even a single ayah would remain upon the earth. And people would then remain on the earth in this condition, and all they would recognize that their faith is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That's it. In essence, they have no connection to their faith other than the kalima itself. Now, brothers and sisters, looking at this part of the hadith, I've contemplated before, years back, when I first read this hadith, how would the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala suddenly disappear from the lives of people? And as I was going through it myself, I recognized that, most of us, when reading the Quran, today that is, we don't have a physical copy of the Quran anymore, right? What do we have? We have our cell phones, right? So the cell phone in itself, you might have the storage there. I mean, it's stored on the cell phone itself, or the app that you're using doesn't store anything locally. It's just connected to the World Wide Web. So whenever you want, the app connects you to the website, the source. You read the Quran from there, and that's it. Now, what happens if you're unable to access that app, the website that you depend upon? Let's say Quran Explorer, or let's say tanzil.com or .net. These websites that are instrumental in giving you access to the Quran. Let's say for some reason the website is down. You have no access to it. The app is there, but it's a hollow app. You push on the surah, whatever surah it is, it comes out empty, because there's no connection between that app and the information stored on the web. It's severed. You can imagine then that the Quran would disappear altogether. Furthermore, ya ikhwan, the shocking thing here is that we are more dependent, although it's just new, new to all of us, the presence and prevalence of AI, ChatGPT as one example. My brother just a few days ago was showing how damaging ChatGPT can be, because he asked ChatGPT to quote a surah, Surah Al-Mulk. The first 5 or 6 ayahs were perfectly, quoted. But then the ayat afterwards took a weird turn. The ends of the ayahs are shifted, twisted, and it's quoting you 1, 2, 3, all the way down. So people who take this for granted will simply cut and paste, pass it off, and then subhanAllah, possibly confusing themselves and others. What if then, when we don't have access to a physical copy of the Quran, we depend so heavily on AI that it now begins to tailor for us a surah itself? Rather than 30, 40 ayahs, it gives you a summarized 10 ayat. Imagine. People don't know. They will simply just take it for granted. Yeah, this is the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. And in this way, you will gradually but surely lose your connection to the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's very scary. We're living in a scary time, subhanAllah. So, these two hadith have mentioned two specific things. That is the death of scholars, which we've witnessed and seen. Every year we have news, the sad news of more scholars passing away. Rahimahumullah ajma'in. And then, as well, people not having that connection, that concern with the book of Allah Azza wa Jal as they once possibly did. But how else would ignorance become widespread in the ummah? I want to hear from you. How else do you think it will become widespread? Generally speaking, when we look at these topics, it's important for us to kind of contemplate, think outside the box, to really be able to understand where that danger lies, so that we can, inshallah, counter it. So, yes, does anyone have any thoughts on where or how ignorance will become widespread, aside from what we've mentioned? Yes. Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. That makes sense. Barakallah fik. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So the following the ignorant individuals who prop themselves up as scholars, you take their word for granted, and in that way, ignorance will become widespread. Not just widespread. It will begin foundational basis that so and so said this. So we begin to attach the haqq and truth to who? To a person. That person could be completely on the batil and the falsehood, but we love that person so much. We have reverence for that individual to a point that we're not ready to accept that he's wrong. And we accept his statement wholeheartedly. That's true. Anyone else? Sisters? Anyone want to share something? Yes, ma'am. Yes, true. So the upbringing plays a significant role. If we, as parents in this generation, do not raise our kids properly, instilling within them the love and attachment to the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, they may certainly lose that connection and have little to no regard for it. That's true. Yes. Yes. Do my own thing. Mm. Yeah, yeah. This is the sad thing. We have people who say that, well, we're living in troubled times. I don't like so and so. I don't like so and so. I'll do my own thing. I have the book of Allah, the Sunnah of Rasulullah. I can do like whatever everyone else does. And I've even heard to a point where people say, Allah musta'an, Imam Abu Hanifa, rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, these were individuals. And, they had their madahib. I can have my own thing right now. Ya akhi, who are you? You have little to no knowledge compared to these ulama who were jahabila. These were like the pillar and foundational pillars among the scholars. Rahimahumullah ajma'in. So, that dismissive attitude that I can be better than them and go beyond them, that in itself would basically institutionalize jahl and ignorance among people, subhanAllah. It's true. Anyone else? Yes. Yeah, true. Yeah, yeah. So, and I've seen that firsthand as well. Absolutely, where you're dismissive in the sense that, well, my mom, my dad, my grandparents and whatnot, they did the same thing. So who are you to come now and change the status quo? It is what it is. Khalas. That's true. And in this way, you would, you know, really solidify the basis of ignorance. Sahih. See, the thing with this is that we have to understand, and this is where it requires of us to look into our own families, into our own selves, our own communities, to recognize those signs of danger. So if we see something that's standing up, we have to recognize it and really address those points to bring it to those in the positions of imamah, the positions of ilm, to have them, inshallah, be vigilant, to pitch in, to kind of guide the community to kind of get to that point where we can counter the ignorance that is spreading, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So that is an introduction. We're going to jump into the ruling of learning inheritance, or the division of inheritance, let's say, or the rules that pertain to mirath. I've heard from people that I don't need to learn this because there are very accurate calculators right now that if you put in everyone, it divides the inheritance for you. That's good enough for us. Why should I bother myself learning who gets half, who gets one third, who gets one sixth? It's a waste of my time. I can just go to the calculator online. There are 100 websites. I put in everyone's name and the amount of money, and that's it. Khalas, I'm done. Look, they're helpful. They are helpful, but they don't give you ilm. It's like, for example, someone who, when they're told, solve this math puzzle, let's say your child, they're in grade 1 or kindergarten, they're told to solve 15 minus 5. You know the answer, but your kid doesn't know it. And you're trying to tell your kid, listen, there's a way to solve this. You might use an example of apples and take away 5 apples or whatever you're doing. Whatever you do in this regard to educate them to understand the principle and the concept is good. But what is not good is to say, Dad, just take this calculator, punch in 15 minus 5, and you're good. He'll get the answer, but he'll get no ilm. He'll remain jahil, unable to really understand the concept. We don't want that. And this is how, by the way, ignorance will become widespread. You have a sense that you know something, that actually you don't know nothing, and you are so dependent upon that medium that when you're unable to access that medium, no one knows anything whatsoever. That's dangerous. So have an idea as to how you do this, how you proceed in dividing the inheritance. Islamically speaking, it's a calculator to check your calculator. No big deal. I'm not against using technology, but use it properly. Don't be so dependent upon it that you don't know anything yourself. Use it wisely in a sense. So here, going back to the ruling of fara'id or inheritance, the scholars indicate that this is fardu kifaya. Now we have two, fardu ayn and fardu kifaya. Fardu ayn is a duty upon every individual. So for example, praying salah, the five daily prayers, that's fardu ayn, meaning every one of us is required to perform the prayer on time. Whereas fardu kifaya, if some within a community learn the fundamentals of this knowledge, the sin of not learning it would not encompass the entire community. So it becomes, therefore, a duty among some within every community to have that understanding, that knowledge that's pertinent to this field. So just in case something arises, we can fall back upon those who have that ilm, that ma'rifah. And that's why this in itself should encourage us to step up. Because if you look at those who mastered this field of knowledge, compared to every scholar of fiqh, those who mastered the field of fara'id were few. Even among the companions of Allah ta'ala alayhim, not every Sahabi knew how to divide the inheritance. Look, they're all virtuous. We love them all. They're the best of all people. As in the hadith, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ قَرْنِي. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, best of all people are my generation. But if we look now, within the Sahaba, how many of them mastered the field of inheritance, dividing inheritance? A few. You can actually count them on, maybe one or two hands. That's it. In the hadith, in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and other sources, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was speaking about the virtues of his companions. He started by saying, Arhamu ummati bi ummati Abu Bakr. The most merciful of my ummah towards the ummah is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. It's a long hadith. But in the midst of this narration, وَأَقْرَبُهُمْ Zayd. The most knowledgeable of my ummah in matters of inheritance law is Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu. He was a master and an alim in this field specifically. Not every Sahabi, just a handful, subhanAllah. So this should encourage you. I want to be among those few who have this mastery that can really divide the inheritance so that I can be among those who achieve that great reward bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now, these are some of the narrations that we have that pertain to the importance and the virtue of learning this field of knowledge. In one narration, in the meaning of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's words, it says knowledge is one of three. The first, an ayah, in the tafsir of that ayah. Number two, a sunnah. And number three, it relates to the faridah, or knowing how to divide the inheritance. In another narration, it states, learn the fara'id and teach it to people. For verily, this knowledge will be taken away, and fitan, that means disputes and issues that arise among people, until two would dispute among themselves regarding what they would receive or what they should receive from the inheritance, the estate, and they would find no one to judge between them. This should encourage us to step up. Then in another narration, learn the fara'id and teach it, for it is equal to half the knowledge. And lastly, we have the hadith, give the fara'id to the rightful claimants. So this all should encourage you overall to do your best to learn, at least to have that understanding, that grasp of this knowledge, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We also have the narrations I found quite interesting from the Sahaba, who were so encouraged to really excel. By the way, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu was among the ulama in this field. He has certain masail that he himself gave a decision in that we use till today. They're called the Mas'alat al-Umuriyatayn. Very specific mas'ala that he solved so brilliantly that if you look at it, you think, even now, you look at it, how amazing and how brilliant his decision was in this regard. It's just ajib. You have another mas'ala, it's called Mas'alat al-Yammiyya, or al-Himariyya, or al-Hajariyya, where he solved that case, likewise, in a brilliant way. And, subhanAllah, till today, some scholars use that decision he gave in that mas'ala, subhanAllah. So he, gave his ijtihad in this area. So he was among the scholars who, subhanAllah, excelled in this field. So he's telling us, learn fara'id, for it is a part of your deen. Don't let anyone else beat you in this regard. Excel, motivate yourself to come along and be the best that you can in this area. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said, whoever learns the Quran, let him learn fara'id. Anyway, see that the fara'id, I'll talk a bit more about why it is so significant, but we'll get to that inshallah. So Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu said, the likeness of a person who reads the Quran but does not know fara'id is like a body without a head or a head without a face. To show you just how significant this is, subhanAllah. Radiallahu anhum ajma'in. So now this is something that I find quite interesting. So let me ask you all. We talk about people's estates, right? That's what we divide, right? What is in an estate? What do you think? Yes. Okay. Everything. So can someone be more specific? Specific? House, good. Anything else? Cash, with accounts and cash, yeah. Okay, true. Investments, good. What else? Cars, vehicles, yes. Business assets, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. What else? Jewelry, yes. Clothing, yes. It's kind of picked everything up. Sometimes people, when they look at an estate, we have a certain preconceived notion. It only includes the money and the things that are of any value. So what happens then? You might have the one potential heir saying, this is all rubbish and trash, scoops everything out, clears the house out, and tosses all that in the trash can. Or he dumps it at Value Village, or in the Salvation Army, or wherever else, right? He's thinking that I'm doing a service to everyone else, but ultimately, what is he doing? Even though it might be insignificant in his eyes, he is taking the haqq of the other heirs. If they do not forgive him in this regard, he'll be held accountable before Allah Azza wa Jalla. Even a pair of clothes that you might think is worthless, you can't just go do things on your own. It is now وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ, where everything is to be discussed mutually, consented to overall by every party that is there. Another issue that arises is that sometimes when someone dies, people will simply just say, lay claim to whatever's there. You know what? Oh, that there is mine, I'm taking it back. Or I gave, I gave him this item, this computer, although he used it for a year, I gave it to him, so I'm going to take it back. So people begin to snatch things from the estate, believing that they have a certain claim over it when there's no claim at this point. This is all to be divided in accordance to the Sharia law. Bear in mind, no matter how insignificant, how sentimental something is to you, how emotional you feel about something, I hate to say this, but look, this is a field of knowledge you have to remove all emotion from. This is an emotionless field. We have certain things that must be divided, and then we divide them in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah. Your emotions and whatnot, that's all afterwards. This is a specific field where we look at things from a numbers perspective. What's there? Assess it, we divide it accordingly. People crying will not get more. People sad will not get more. It is all in accordance to what is in the Quran and Sunnah. That's the case often. People, I've dealt with cases where people be in such an emotional state, they get angry and you begin to speak about this matter because why? This is, like I don't want to get into details, but I've dealt with cases across Canada and in the States and in Saudi and other places where people become so emotionally entangled in a division. We have to kind of stop and tell them, hold on a moment. This has nothing to do with your emotions. I completely respect you and hear you, but this is not the place to kind of vent. This is simply, a function that we perform to make sure every haqq is given accordingly to every person who deserves it. What's worse, though, is you might have an uncle. I'm using this very loosely, though, so don't misquote me here. I'm just in general. You might have an uncle. What I mean by this is a person who has no share in the inheritance whatsoever. He'll come along and say, I was the favorite uncle. Where's my share? You don't have a share. Wallahi, I have a share. And he'll come and take stuff. You can't do that. You have no share here. I was a beloved uncle. I was here day in, day out. It doesn't matter. This is a simple, straightforward calculation and division and assessment. We can talk about your feelings afterwards. No problem, inshallah. But right now, pull that all aside, subhanAllah. So the estate tends to be more than what we might think of it here in the West. It's every single item that was left behind. If someone wants to discard something, you all together, all the potential heirs get together, reach a conclusion where you all are unanimous. Even if one says no, you can't take the majority decision. It's by unanimous, decision where you agree to doing whatever you're doing together, all together, and then you basically, you know, give away or do whatever you want with whatever you don't want to have in that estate. That's up to you people afterwards. But from our perspective, dividing this, we look at everything as a whole. طيب. Now, this is quite interesting because what we have over here, brothers and sisters, and this is the thing that I have to be clear on. This is, subhanAllah, we talk about inheritance division. But inheritance division is the very last thing that we do. See all these other rights? They all come before. So let's say someone left $10,000. That's all his inheritance was, right? Out of curiosity, how much does it cost to bury someone here in Chilliwack? Okay, make it easy. Let's say someone left $20,000. Make it that way. So $20,000 they left, okay? So the person died. The heirs may look at the bank account and think, oh, 20,000, it's good money for us. We can divide that among ourselves and, we'll have a decent share. We tell them, hold on a moment. You cannot lay claim to any single penny from that account unless you fulfill every one of these rights before we get to what, that's your right, that's the division. Preparation for burial. From that 20,000, let's say 10,000 is gone for the preparation of the burial, the washing, the 10,000 includes the ghusl, right? Okay, everything. So 10,000 would be taken immediately for the deceased. And at this point, we're left with what? 10,000. Now, still, the heirs don't get that 10,000. We look, are there any debts? Let's say there were $5,000 in debts. He didn't pay off certain people, whatever else. We take that 5,000 out. What remains now? 5,000. Let's say in his will he had written, I want to give a certain amount of money charity, fi sabilillah, to the rich and masjid, for example. How much? $500? Take that out. Now what we're left with is simply $4,500, and this one then will be divided among the heirs. That's it. So when people look at this, and I deal with this issue where people say we have this much money. The minute someone tells you we have this much money, you have to tell them, just hold on a moment. Have you taken care of every other right that should be taken care of or not? This, as one who's dividing the inheritance, is one of our duties that we have to do our due diligence in this regard. Was everything taken care of? Were the debts taken care of? The burial, of course, beforehand. Debts taken care of. Was all the, wasaya, this is the amount of money he has, given or has asked to give out on his behalf after his death, were they taken care of as well? If all that's taken care of, then we can come to the division of what remains in that inheritance. So there's more to it than simply dividing what's there, giving what you get. No, you don't do that. Now, looking at the issue of wasaya, we have the hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu. He said, I fell ill, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came to visit me. I said, Ya Rasulullah, he's in not so many words said, I feel I'm dying, Ya Rasulullah, and I want to give a wasiyah. I want to bequest a certain amount of my money. I want to give everything fi sabilillah. Everything I own fi sabilillah. Rasulullah said, don't do that. Leave some for your heirs. Ya Rasulullah, I want to give half of what I own. Rasulullah said, no, it's too much. You can't do that. Leave for your heirs. He said, 2/3, to half. No, no. How about 1/3? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, 1/3 is still too much, but you can give it. He said, it's better for you to leave your heirs with more than with less. Subhanallah. So that third portion, the 1/3, that goes back to the third right. Let's say the person in his will had written down, I want to give half of my money. He said, you can't do that. Immediately that is rejected. We drop it down to 1/3. That is it, right? Unless all the heirs get together and say, yes, we want to, fulfill this for our father or our brother or whoever else passed away. If they are all unanimously agreed, we'll give whatever he wants, and that's okay. But if they don't agree, even one says no, we drop it down to the third. This is how it is. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُم. Don't have hard feelings. Sometimes people come up, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's hungry for money. He's not hungry for money. This is his haqq. Allah has given it to him. Don't complain. If you don't come to a conclusion, So be it, alhamdulillah. This is how the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Yes. This one?
Sometimes it happens, like, and especially at this age, like, if someone dies and he has a debt, that much debt that won't even cover inheritance.
Then there's nothing left for inheritance. Let's say the person owned that $50,000. Okay. So he's asking, what if someone has left an enormous amount of debt? So I'm giving an example. Let's say someone left $100,000 in debt that is not paid off. He borrowed and did not pay off. He died with $50,000 in his account. What happens here is that we fulfill the burial, whatever remains to the debts, khalas, done. Nothing remains for the inheritance division at that point. Because the priority is not for division of inheritance. Priority is every other haq before. That's why I'm saying that, people get attached to what's in the accounts. To me, I feel sometimes, I've dealt with this many times, where people tell you what's in the account and they want to know what's their haq. They can take it right away from the account, withdraw it, and say, I'm scot-free. You're not. That's not yours no more. Even for the fact of taking something from that inheritance, or that estate, sorry, before the debts are fulfilled, and there are debts, it's not yours. This money belongs to those who it's owed to. This is how the deen is. It's justice. It's fair. The money was taken, not returned. We return that money. Let's say now $100,000, 50,000 was taken care of, or 40,000 was taken care of from the debts, from the what remains. The remaining 60,000, if the heirs get together and they pay it off, khayran, may Allah reward them. Person, we look at everything he has, all his assets. If all of them equal 100,000, then we pay off the debt. If there's something left, then we can take it for the division, as we said. Okay. Barakallah fikum. So we're going to jump to this over here, and this is in relation to the causes for inheritance, how one inherits. And the reason I like to speak on this is, we have, I guess, in this day and age more than before, a lot of adoptions. People adopt, children from war zones, be it from Syria, be it from other areas. Or we've had, some families, get involved. I'm not sure here in BC. I'm talking more about in Alberta. This has happened over there. So inheritance is not given through any type of adopted relationship. There's no inheritance. There's no connection. Because connection for inheritance is only to these two reasons. Proper marriage, nikah as-sahih. So in this case, husband would inherit the wife would inherit the husband. And likewise in the condition of lineal ties, right? So this is the family relations, and we can break this down further as we see here. So the person has three forms of ties. We have the person in the middle. The parents, they are what we call al-usul, right? So the reason as to why the person is here, that's the parents, the grandparents, and so on and so forth, the great-grandparents, all this is considered al-usul, right? And they all are potential heirs, every one of them. The great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, potential heir, if he's alive, right? I'm not saying he is an heir, a potential heir. The grandparents, potential heirs. The parents, heirs, okay? We have al-furu'. Al-furu' are the branches that extend from the individual, that's his children. That is basically his son and his daughter, and the children of his son, boys and girls. Whereas his daughter, no, just the daughter. The children of the daughter do not inherit from him because they are from a different family and whatnot. Then we have the hawashi, which are sideline. We can look at them as being sideline heirs. Not as strong as the other heirs. This would include brothers and the uncles. The weakest of all heirs are the uncles. I mean, I dealt with many cases, and I think maybe I can't even give you a percentage rate, but I cannot recall the last time I've divided an inheritance with an uncle that would inherit, because there are many other heirs who would bar and block the uncle from inheriting, right? That's why I said the example of an uncle coming to, I deserve something. This has actually happened because they get very emotional. Tell them there's no emotion. You have to pull the emotion apart. Yes. Yeah, so the person's uncle, that's going to be the maternal uncles on the father's side. Yes. So that whenever we look at relationships, there's another thing that we have to be very clear with. In inheritance, we have to always look at the relation from the perspective of the dead person. What was this person in relation to the dead person? So you're not going to say my mom, this, that. No, no, no. Don't give me my mom. That's very confusing. That's his wife, for example. If a man, we always say a man dies, leaving a wife, for example, a son, a daughter, a brother. We let me clarify what type of brother is it? A full brother, a consanguine brother, a uterine brother. We go into all these details, break everything down, right? So in this way, we're able to really have a clear understanding. This is the worst thing in this field of knowledge. When you have someone comes up to you and says, "I have a mom, I got a mom." The case is a mom, a brother, and now it's confusing. From whose perspective are you talking? From your perspective? Well, we have to always make sure that this is from the perspective of the one who passed away. Who are these individuals in relation to the one who died? At that point, we can then proceed to divide the inheritance properly. Now, to talk about this, we have this point that's very important. What prevents one from inheriting? We have homicide. It's become, I will not say more common, but I've seen it more now than in the past. Where you might have a son who kills his father to get the inheritance, right? Although this is son and father, because he killed the father, he doesn't get a single penny. He's completely barred. That's it. Likewise, difference in religion. This is based on the hadith, Muslim. If there's a difference in faith and religion, a Muslim will not inherit from a non-Muslim, and a non-Muslim will not inherit from a Muslim. This is in the hadith. So with this, we're going to go just quickly into the male heirs before we get to the rates, inshallah, and the female heirs. So we had the son, as we talked about, son, and their sons. Look, I know we might think, why not just call it a grandson? We can't call it a grandson because a grandson is also the daughter's son. You got to be very careful and clear here. A son's son. I know it's tedious. I know it's just kind of verbose, but we've got to call things as they actually are. A son's son, the father, the grandfather, father of the father. And be very careful how we kind of, define these things. Full brother, consanguine brother, uterine brother, son of the full brother, son of the consanguine brother, paternal uncle, half uncle from the paternal side, paternal uncle's son, and the half uncle's son from the paternal uncle's side, and the husband. These are the 14 heirs that potentially can inherit from the one who passes away. Female heirs, the daughter, the son's daughter, the mother, the grandmother from the mother's side, the grandmother from the father's side, the full sister, the consanguine sister, the uterine sister, and the wife. These are the 9 heirs from the female side that can potentially inherit. But these heirs that we talked about now, there are some who receive an amount in the Quran, in the Sunnah. It's already predetermined, right? Some heirs don't have any percentage or any fraction rate, no half, one third, nothing. They receive what remains. It's an open-ended portion, right? And there are specific rules that pertain to these two categories, which we'll get to, inshallah. So looking at the rates in the Quran, in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us of the half, the quarter, the eighth, the 2/3, 1/3, and 1/6. There are other rates, like I said, the ijtihad that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, the 1/3 of the leftover, which is a different mas'ala altogether, but that's his ijtihad that the scholars today accept unanimously. And then we have heirs who inherit through a lump sum, the remainder, as we said. Is this, you guys are okay still, inshallah? Okay, look, to be very fair, this field of knowledge, although I'm trying to motivate you to learn it, I have to be very clear here. It gets somewhat dry. If you like math, you like arithmetic, you like to kind of logically think through masail, you'll love this. But if you're one who likes to read details and you might get somewhat bored and think, what's happening? Let me get someone else to do it. I'll work with someone else. So look, I had classes. I taught this in BC before when I was living here. I had 30 plus students in the beginning. We ended up with just 2 or 3 students in the end. Because what I'm teaching you right now is just, like I said, it's just an overview that we cover in 2 to 3 months. This is just an overview to give you an idea as to what to expect when you learn this field of knowledge. We ended up with 2 or 3 students in the end. And I don't even know if those 2 or 3 students are still here. Allahu Alam. In Fort McMurray, did the same thing, had a course, went almost to 3 months and something. We started with a good, healthy number of 30 almost. We ended up with, I think it was 3 or 4, but many of them moved out. So you might get bored, you might get tired, a lot of details. And the other thing with this field of knowledge, I must say, unlike any other field of knowledge, let's say like you're learning about the fiqh of salah. The fiqh of salah, there's certain individual components that you can learn individually, standalone components, like wudu. standalone. So in order for me to perform the prayers, I must have wudu. But you know, not knowing how to pray right now would not have any impact on me learning the wudu. So I can learn this separately, independently, which I would then use with my salah afterwards. So these are individual components. This field is not like that. Every bit of knowledge you learn, you must have it in your mind. So if you need, you have to look at everything as one entire mosaic. You need everything all at once to be able to then accurately divide the inheritance. That's why sometimes I'm skeptical with some of these, online calculators because it is complex. These complexities, like if you make a mistake in quoting who gets what, a full brother with a consanguine brother, you might bar someone from inheritance who actually deserves something, or you may give something to someone who doesn't deserve. So it's these are like really critical things, subhanAllah. Yes. In this area, all the madhahib are same. We have certain masahib, yes, there is khilaf, but in these fundamental things, because it's from the Quran and the Sunnah directly, there's no khilaf. Who gets half, who gets two-thirds, who gets one. It's all unanimous among all the ulama. So this category, ta'asib, means inheriting without a set rate. We have three categories. We have ta'asib and nafs. So I'll give you an example here just to make this a little bit more interesting. Hopefully you can see this. So ta'asib and nafs, let's say we have over here, someone died, we'll say a man, let's say a man died and he left, okay? He left his wife, okay, and son. The wife is among those who inherit by a rate. In this condition, she inherits 1/8. The son here does not inherit a rate. He inherits by an open-ended portion, which in this case, we always say the leftover. You will see the leftover. So these heirs who inherit through ta'asib do not inherit like this. They inherit by whatever remains. Sometimes what remains will be nothing. You don't get nothing. Sometimes a small amount would remain, and they'll get that small amount. Sometimes a lion's share will be here like this. They'll get the lion's share. That's the first category. Then we have ta'asib bil ghayr. Ta'asib bil ghayr. I'll erase this and show you this example here. Let's say a man died. This is the second category of ta'asib. A man died leaving his son and his daughter. In this condition here, if there is no son, the daughter would receive 1/2 if there was no one. Okay? If there was no one, the daughter would receive 1/2, but she was by herself, I mean, right? But because her brother is there, what then happens is that this would then become للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين by open rate. So he gets 2 shares, she gets 1 share. Okay? This is the rule. By the way, we said her brother. Let's say this man was married before and he had a son from a previous marriage. Then he got married again. Then he had a daughter. Same thing. للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. Right? So that's the case. We always look at relationships from the perspective of who? Dead person. Whose son is it? It's his son. Whose daughter is it? It is his daughter. Even if the wives are different, doesn't matter. Okay? So in this case, للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين, 2 for the son and 1 for the daughter. Yes. Yeah. Yes. What? We always divide, or the person who has a rate, we put that first, and then what remains afterwards, they will take what remains. تعصيب مع الغير, this is for some of the female heirs who may, in certain cases, be knocked out of contention for inheritance. When they come in a certain case, they will be given the leftover. We call this تعصيب مع الغير. We have over here the hajb, which is basically to bar someone. It's by one of two things. We talked about the first one before. By description, someone killed someone. That person who killed would not inherit from the one that they killed. Difference of religion. But then we have by a person, where someone will be barred or basically blocked by a person. So this is where we have a person being knocked down from a higher rate to a lower rate. Okay? You can see over here the rates. A husband, his two rates are always a half or a quarter. When there are certain heirs, that's in this case the son or the daughter, he's knocked down from the higher rate to the lower rate. The wife, she has 1/4 or 1/8. When there is son and daughter, or a son or a daughter, she's knocked down from the 1/4 to the 1/8. If there are more than one, let's say a spouse, where the man dies leaving more than one spouse, in this case, what happens then? The two would share in the quarter or the eighth, right? The mother, 1/3, that's her lion's share, but she's knocked down to 1/6. She's knocked down to 1/6 when there's a son or daughter or a group of brothers and sisters. They knock down the mother from 1/3 to 1/6. Son's daughter, half to a sixth. Likewise, the consanguine sister and the full sister as well, 1/2 to 1/6. طيب. This is important over here. Let me just erase this. So the very first rule, whoever inherits through an heir, that heir would bar him. So let's say we have a person that died. Okay? This is the individual who died. Sorry. This individual died. Say it's a man. He has his father, who's alive still. Okay? Then he has the grandfather, potential heir. He has his son, still alive. But then he has his son's son, potential heir. Okay? So the rule states whoever inherits through an heir, and that heir is present, that heir would bar the one inheriting through him. So how does the son's son inherit? He inherits the line of sons. So if there is a son, this son would then bar the son's son. He doesn't inherit. Okay? By the way, if someone, let's say, and I've dealt with this case, this is like I said, we have to pull emotions out. It gets very rough sometimes. Where you might have someone who maybe had 3 or 4 or 5 children, right? Let's say one of those kids or two of those kids died. Okay, they shouldn't be saying kids. Let's say 2 of the family died before this person died. So he had let's say, I'll give you an example. Is anyone's name Amr over here? No? Anyone's name Zaid? Okay, so no, because I'm asking that because we in fiqh we usually use Zayd and Amr. So I don't want to use your name in this example. So I'll use the word name Amr. Okay. Let's say Amr, he had 5 children, 5 sons. Okay. During Amr's life, 2 of them died. But they were married and they had kids. Amr, because he loved these 2 sons of his so dearly, he said, I don't care. I'm going to divide my inheritance, or have my inheritance divided by 5 portions, in 5 portions. 1 for each of my kids. Although 2 of my kids died in my life, I'm going to preserve their inheritance. It'll be given to their kids. That's haram. You can't do that. Because in the example, Amr, those other kids, the children of those 2 who died, they are sons. They inherit the line of sons. Any son who is present, whether it's the immediate son or any other son, in this position, they would block anyone that's a level below. Likewise here, the father and the grandfather. We said the grandfather is a potential heir. Let's say person died, the Amr died, leaving father and grandfather. The grandfather will not inherit because the father is present, because the grandfather inherits through the line of fatherhood. So if the father is here, he is basically blocking the grandfather from inheriting. So he's cut off. Unless this guy dies, or let's say he killed this guy, then we're going to bypass and say, yes, you do inherit, but you don't inherit, for example, right? So this is like kind of that's how we look at this rule of Hajj. Okay? So the second rule, if we have 2 or more asaba heirs, okay, and this is best clarified if I give you an example here. Let's say we have over here Asaba, those who don't inherit by race. These are all the males. You notice every person who receives a half, third, two-thirds, all women except for who? Husband. Every other male heir doesn't get half, two-thirds, one-sixth. They receive open-ended, what remains. Women are given a defined amount, as we mentioned, except for the husband. So here, let's say we have a son. So a person died leaving his son. He left his full brother. It means brother from the same mother and father. Okay. Let's say he left his consanguine brother. Let's say as well he left three uncles, beloved favorite uncles. Yeah, consanguine brother means the person has the same father but different mother. Okay? So we have the son, full brother, consanguine brother, and three uncles who are very beloved to the one who died. Okay? Looking at this, so I said he had to pull out emotions over here. These guys, they don't inherit nothing, even though they're beloved. Complete X out on them altogether. Why? Because look, it's a triple whammy. He's here, he blocks them out. Then this guy is here, he blocks them out. And then, of course, the son on top of that. He blocks the uncles out entirely. So they have nothing. Now, the consanguine brother is not much better off either because he's cut out as well. Because who is here? These two people. But the full brother doesn't get nothing either because the son is here. The son is the king of all heirs. Think of him as the key piece. He's there. He either bars everyone, knocks everyone out, or people who have race were not knocked out. He basically limits them to the lowest amount possible. The lion's share goes to the son. So the two strongest heirs that we have will be the son and the daughter. These are the extremely strong heirs. Combined together, it's a formidable force in the area of inheritance.
Yeah. Yeah. When
Yeah.
love it. Possible that the boy dies and he assigns the one third.
Yes, of course, he could do that. But we're assuming in the case that it's not done. Because I don't think it's a practice. People don't do that. I've never come across a case where someone says, I want to give my uncle this amount of money. It might be, but I've not come across it myself. It's assumed the uncle will come, I was this, I was that, I need this. You know, subhanAllah. The third rule. Yes. So let's say we have, it's now a challenge because we have the son and daughter, we said the strongest. But let's say over here, we have a son. The man died leaving his son and his father. His son cannot knock the father out. But what he can do is limit him to one-sixth. Yes. And then he receives the leftover. So he still inherits, but because of his position and strength, the son knocks the father not out entirely, but partially, and limits his share to the one-sixth. Fine. I'm gonna go for it. So this is just to kind of indicate to you. Just a correction. I told you before. The only male heir that receives a rate is the husband. It's true, but also the uterine brother. Uterine brother basically is the brother that has the same mother but different father. The boy and the girl in that condition, uterine brother and sister, they are on one level, the weakest heirs, but they receive a rate. And that rate for boys and girls is equal. Okay, so we have it over here. You can see, you can take a picture of this if you want. This gives you an overview of the rates overall. Quick summary. Okay.
Just
Yes.
let's say if it was a business
Yeah.
and there are multiple sources.
Yeah.
And one of my son, let's say they build the house
Yeah.
for their family.
We'll get to that inshallah. Yes, inshallah. Different thing. Yes. Okay, we'll move on, inshallah. We gave an example of this already, but just if you want, this gives you an idea. So we have mother, wife, and son, one-sixth, one-eighth. We explain why the son is the strongest heir in this condition. Okay. So I think with this, we're going to move on to the wasiya part. Like what we covered right now, the inheritance, just to give you an idea. Most definitely, you cannot divide an inheritance with what we've covered. It's simply to kind of give you that motivation. Like we said, to encourage you to learn more in this area, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now, brothers and sisters, talking about the wasiyah itself, the will, in the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, this is in Sahih al-Bukhari, ما حق امرئ مسلم له شيء يوصي فيه يبيت ليلتين إلا ووصيته مكتوبة عنده. Narration says that if a Muslim has something that he must note down, let's say he took a debt or he borrowed money from someone, he has to write that down, right? He has to document this. So in this case, the wasiyah is a reference to documenting rights that are owed to people so that they not be lost. Okay? So if anyone has something that they must inform the heirs of, write it down, document it, right? So in this case, it wouldn't, the huquq or the rights would not be lost. And this is something that's very challenging because in many instances, people come forward and say, I'm owed this. Where's the evidence? It was between me and him. And you have the heirs saying, well, we never heard of it, we don't know who you are, that's it. The haqq is lost, and the father or whoever passed away would be held accountable before Allah Azza wa Jal if this is not fulfilled. So it is the right and the duty upon the one who's taken money to write it down, to have witnesses. That's what we're told. Have witnesses in any matter. And sometimes people might scoff at this. Yeah, why do you want a witness? It's between me and you. Take emotions out. This is the command of Allah. We are fulfilling the command of Allah to have witnesses present to do that which is pleasing to Him Jalla wa'ala. Simple. Now, this is the problem. When you mix emotions into things, we begin to kind of drop certain conditions and hope that are tied to the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. That's not the way you do things at all. Okay. The question comes up for us all to kind of contemplate. Do we have a plan? Do we have a plan ourselves? And the reality is, brothers and sisters, about 60% of all Canadians do not have a will, right? It's worse among 18 to 34. And among Muslim families, those that I have dealt with and talked to, the majority, the vast majority of them do not have wills. I'm young, don't worry about it, inshallah. I'll get to it. And I've seen those families, the brothers and sisters who hit, 50 and up, they're more keen on getting their affairs in order, especially if they're going for Hajj. And I've dealt with this often. Brothers come in the office, Sheikh, I need you to be a witness. Here we go. This is my will. We do everything right there and then. We seal it, keep it in the masjid. So I have a file of all the wills, documentation. These wills are for the 50 plus. But I haven't come across anyone younger than that giving me anything because you're young, you feel like you don't need this right now. SubhanAllah, Allah musta'an. So it's important for us to have this. Do not think that I have a long life ahead of me. Wallahi, you all know that of the signs of Qiyamah, that sudden death would descend upon people where they would feel that life is ahead of them. Then SubhanAllah, Allah has different plans. Allahu Akbar. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm just sharing with you this information. I'm not going to go into any detail about this. I'm going to share these points with you. Inshallah, you might have, and I'm sure you do have here in BC, within the BCMA, you have those who, inshallah, have that knowledge and that understanding as to how to set these things up because they are complicated. And the rules that pertain to BC are somewhat different than what we have in Alberta. But I'll give you one recommendation at the end of this, inshallah. But we have these four functions, the four things. The wasiyah, the Islamic will, which is similar to a family will. That is the one thing that I hope you can take away from tonight. Putting together a family will at least. Then taking the next step to kind of, do what is right. Maybe you want to talk to someone to kind of certify it, notarize it, whatever. Trust or waqf, that is one thing some people do, especially those who have larger assets and whatnot. They go through the trust approach, waqf approach. Power of attorney, and then the living will. For those who are terminally ill, they have a living will written up and drafted for them. Now, the problem with the Islamic will, people at times, I've dealt with this on countless occasions, that's why I have to really stress this point. What happens is that the Islamic will or the family will is not done properly. And I've read some of these family wills. It is so difficult to make head from tail in that will. Like, it's just as if someone's giving nasiha. Fear Allah, this, that, 1, 2 page, and that's where are the assets? Nothing's written there. So you're left in the dark. And even at that point, the one who's going to execute that will and divide the inheritance has another added headache because they have to go search for these individuals who are potential heirs. And at this point, you have people coming forward, I'm an heir, I'm an heir. But they very well could not be heirs from their distance, the relationship to the dead person. So, just for general knowledge, if the will, family will, the Islamic will, does not meet the legal formalities, that is, there's no witnesses, that cannot be accepted. This has happened. Sometimes a will is brought forth from the family, hidden somewhere in the home. They pull it out, and there's not a single witness or single signature. And they'll say, this is the will of the one who died. How do I know? I can't accept that. If there's evidence of undue influence or duress, this is likewise in the courts of law when it's taken and someone comes up and says, I was forced to agree to this, even though I've signed, I was forced to, I had no other choice. You will take that into consideration, possibly scrap the will as well. And you will fall back upon the Canadian law. Contradiction to public policy or legal rights. That is, in different areas. I'm not going to get into it, but you can have an idea. Ambiguity or lack of clarity in the will. Fraud or forgery. The improper revocation, where there might be a prior will written in the past, notarized, and a new will was written or drafted a month before the person died. But they didn't get the legal or didn't meet the legal standards, so then that would be tossed aside. Failure to include required provisions and challenges by the beneficiaries or heirs is the biggest point, because I've dealt with this at times where will is drafted and they don't like what's in the will. Guess what happens? They all go to the court, and next thing it gets a huge challenge. It's a back and forth battle among people who should be united as one family. They just bury the deceased and they fight among themselves for what remains. The scraps that remain from that deceased, they fight among themselves, subhanAllah. And this would then lead to the chaos within family and destroy that entire family, subhanAllah. So you got to be very careful. When it comes to this, do not hide the will. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. Sit with the family. Talk to them. We want to follow the Sharia law. We want our best to hold the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal when it comes to these elements. We want to do what's right by the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Sit with them, inform them. Do not go hide the will in some place. It's Allahu A'lam, wedged in some wall or under some. Inform them. The will it's over here. It's in this place. It is with the Imam. It's in the masjid. We do advocate for that because, like I said, finding the will, sometimes it is tragic. What's worse? And I'll show you. I had to draw this on the board. Sorry about this, brothers and sisters. But what is worse is that, let's say, I'll give you an example here. Let's say a man died. Okay? He left his wife, son, let's say a daughter. Okay? So it's a very simple case. So you have 1/8, and here we have the leftover. Okay? There's more to it. I'm rushing to this. I need to make a point over here. So the man died, leaving his wife, the mother of these two kids. Okay? Now, the wife here, she's old, terminally ill, and she's sickly. So she dies, let's say, before anything's divided. She dies 2 months after the husband died. So we have a second case now. Okay, the second case is what? A woman, you're going to say a woman, died leaving a son and a daughter. Okay, so this is the whole thing, 2 and 1. So in this case, although we didn't divide the inheritance, the home is still there, the assets are still there. What happens is that some people will say, it's the same son and daughter, will divide the inheritance once. That's haram. There's two divisions here. We have to take into consideration the division of this case with all the assets and look at what remains and what her share was. Let's say that they had a property. The husband and wife had a property. So Amr and there's no Zainab here? Okay, so Zainab. Okay, that's good. So Amr and Zainab, okay? Amr and Zainab, they bought a house. And they agreed mutually. Early on, it was going to be 50-50 because they both pitched in. They both, paid. They both were working. And now the house is theirs, debt-free. But now it's 50-50, and they've agreed on that. So here, 50-50. Zainab's 50% is not touched in the first division. It's only the 50% that belongs to Amr. So we divide this with what he leaves behind, his assets. But now, in the second division, we're going to look at what Zainab inherited from Amr plus whatever else she had. So it's two different cases, two different rates, two different, unique cases here. So if you did divide it by one case, you might think it's all said and done and finished, but here you would have wronged the individuals in the case by giving them less than what they deserve. So you got to be very careful. It's not that simple to kind of do one and finish. People who do this will be held accountable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have here the trust. I'm not going to go through this. This is, like I said, these are different overall. I'm going to just jump through to the will that we have. Let me, I have to just give me a second here. I have to open up the file, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yes, here we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Is it clear? Hmm. There, okay. So, okay. Okay, so this is what you have right now in your hands. Okay. So what this format does, it's not, and just to be clear, this is not the only format. You can use any format that you want. You can use any format that you want. You might find some that are 3-page, 4-page. It doesn't matter. Main thing, you have a family will. Seek legal help from the resources that you have within the BCMA, within Richmond. You have, mashallah, people of knowledge who can guide you. You have Imam Yahya, Imam Sheikh Uthman that can help you in this regard. Barakallah fihi. But when it comes to those legal matters, likewise, you have as well those who can help you bi'idhnillahi ta'ala within the community. This is just an example that you can kind of look at as a guiding approach or whatever else you want. So here it starts off by being very clear. It's the will of so and so. You put your name there. Then we give a small introduction. Then we talk about the funeral and burial rights. It follows the format that we spoke of, right? So they had the funeral burial rights, and here we nominate and appoint so and so residing in this area to fulfill the burial if there's a need for this. Here you can put down the BCMA or whatever else. However you've done your arrangements, you fill it here to make it easy for you, right? And it talks about every other thing that will be required during the burial. So it's a concise kind of summary of what a Muslim should be aware of at this point when they're going to be buried. Number two, the executor and the guardian of the will. This is a portion we never do back home because back home in the Middle East and elsewhere, this is done by the courts that are there. This is a normal practice. But here you've got to take the step because the executor, the guardian of the will, is going to be someone who will search those individuals who truly are heirs. If it was not, identified here, you're going to verify and make sure that everyone that's coming forward is an actual legitimate heir. So that's a little bit of work over here. That's why we're going to assign someone here that can do that. Number three, if there are minor children, right? We have this point of how or what you want to be done so that you will not be, you wouldn't have taken care of something you need to take care of at this point when you part from dunya. Number four, financial records. Just to write down. And of course, even if they're written down here, you cannot just say you don't have a joint bank account and your wife is not on any of the records. Your wife can't suddenly go to the bank and say, give me the money. That's not going to happen. You have to make some arrangement that, in the case of my death, whatever it is, you can have that function where this person can be given access to the account, right? So we talk about the financial records. So this is all this taking care of the first right. Now then in Article 5, debts and expenses. We say that these are the that I have that are that I owe, right? So you're going to put everything down. So whether it be zakat that was not paid, right? Like say a person they didn't pay zakat last year and they just felt lazy about it. Now they want to come and they have to write that down over here. They have money that they owe to others, write that down as well, and so on and so forth. Yes, Sheikh, now, what's your? There are. That's why I'm leaving it here to see your legal requirements in BC. I'm just giving it very broad. You can ask the imams here and the resources that you have, inshallah. Inshallah, barakallah fiqh. So, charitable contributions, that's the wasiyya part, the third one, if you recall in the slides. Name of the organization or person, and then amount. Although it says Canadian dollars here, I would say don't put dollars, put a percentage of what remains. That's better. You can just, if you're going to use this form, just correct it, inshallah. Yes. Of course, yeah, it's optional. It's not a requirement. Yeah, yeah. You want to cross the whole thing out, cross the whole thing out. Doesn't matter. But this is just following the format of all the hukuk that we have that we talked about right now. Is burial is first. Number two was the debts. Number three was the wasaya. Number four, finally, is distribution that we come to right now. Article 7, distribution of my estate. Now, this can be done in one of two ways. Let's say that a person only has three heirs, wife, son, and daughter. In this case, it's easy to give every potential scenario in 2 pages. So if I die and my wife and son and daughter survive me, each gets this much, for example, right? If I die and my son is not present, then my daughter and my wife will get it. So you're going through every scenario. It's like 5 or 6, 7 scenarios, and that's it. Some people do that. But the problem is when the cases become more complex, you can't do that because you'll be stuck with 30, 40 pages. You'll be sifting through example after. You can't do that. So what you then do, and we did this over here, is that I direct that the division of my estate not be done till both myself and my spouse pass away. That can be just as a reservation because sometimes we've had cases where the mother, astaghfirullah, was pushed out into an old person's home and then the home was taken and divided. Look, we're living in strange times, right? Allah musta'an. This is sad to say, but this is what we're seeing things today that really indicate to you that we're close to the end of times. Subhanallah. So we also have over here that if I die as a result of murder, I directed the one who killed me not receive anything. So we're following everything we covered is neatly put into this, this document. Then arbitration, if there's a dispute, who you want to appoint for your dispute. Then we have finally the point over here where you can notarize it if you want, and the witnesses, which are key over here, inshallah. So this is just, like I said, a sample that you can use to kind of guide yourself through this process, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now, we come to the end, inshallah. If you have any questions, yes. I think you had a question, mother. What was it? Yes. Yeah.
One of the brothers, like with their own money, they build
Yeah.
his better house and whatnot. But at the end, when the time,
Yeah.
like I think this brother has additional rights.
Ya akhi, this issue requires qada. It requires, someone to look into every element because the question I know might appear simple, but it's not that simple. They're usually complex. Yes, because what happens is that there may have been an understanding. We don't know. That's why these cases should be presented to the imams that you have here. They will deliberate and then they give you a response. I've dealt with a few cases like this. Never easy. And these are the cases actually that cause the most headache in the Middle East. Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, it does. That's why, like these cases, you find the scholars deliberating deeply on. So I just say we have imams here, Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Uthman, Sheikh Yahya, that can really give you a clear response in this. But this case, you can't just give a general thing. You have to bring all the relevant issues and matters that tie to it, the documents, and then they'll sift through it and they get to a point where you can have a resolution for that matter. So it's a complex matter. I can't answer if you do this or do that. Barakallah. Yes, barakallah. Yes, brother. Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum salam. Barakallah.
Count of all of her finances for zakat. Is it advisable to revise our bills every year because our finances changes? Like
You mean the? But no, but like why would you do that? Because we have this general like you're not writing the. You mean like for the debts?
yeah,
So I mean, like, see, the best thing is leave it open ended. That if I die and I have outstanding zakat that I've not paid, pay it off. If I die and I have outstanding debts, and I do have outstanding debts to X, Y, Z, this amount, and you have that paid off. But let's say you've written the will. I have this much zakat remaining. I don't have ability to pay it off right now. If I die, pay it off. Whatever it is. Let's say there's a few thousand that were due in zakat that you're not able to pay off for whatever reason. But then a year afterwards, Allah gives you the ability, and you paid it off. Yeah, you can fix it. Go to the legal authorities, the lawyer, and whatnot. If you have it notarized, fix it and correctly done. Khalas, alhamdulillah. You can, yes, so it's to adjust it. Yes, 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 for sure. That changes. Yes, yeah. I mean, no, you're not putting the amounts. What you're putting is that for me, it's me. I'm not going to change my account the bank every single year. I'm with one or two banks. That's it. So I know my account number. I'll put that down. My account number and the bank. That's it. Khalas. But let's say someone has Down the road, they open a new account, they close an account. Yeah, you have to update that. For sure, you update that. Yes. Barakallah. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah. Yes, yeah.
The matter of distributing while you're alive, then if you have like sons and daughters, and you want to distribute it between your sons and daughters,
Mhm.
does it have to be equal or
So the condition of life is unlike the condition of death. Inheritance law is different because in the inheritance law, we know Allah Jalla wa ala speaks of it in the Quran. لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيَيْنِ. This is in reference to what? When a person dies, leaving the heirs, we look at it. لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيَيْنِ. So a male on the same level and relation to a female, it's 2 to 1. The male gets 2 shares and the female gets 1 share. So let's say a person dies leaving a mother and father. Same thing. لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيَيْنِ. Father, mother, 2 and 1. Brother, son and daughter, 2 and 1. Brother and sister, 2 and 1. That's how it is. So if in the case that we have, sorry, okay, one off track. What was your?
stays alive? Person
Yes, okay. So this is during death, but during life, it's different. We have a different hadith. The hadith speaks of a person who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after he had gotten married to another woman, and they had a child. And then here, the wife told the husband, "I want you to give this amount of wealth to my son, and not to anyone else. Your previous marriage and whatnot, I want you to give something special to my son." So he said, okay. But he said, I want you to go to Rasulullah and have him witness this so no one can take it from my son. So he goes to Rasulullah and says, Ya Rasulullah, my son, I want to give this as a gift to him. Rasulullah said, did you give all your kids the same? He said, no, Ya Rasulullah. He said, Inni la ashhadu ala jawr. I will never be a witness to this type of oppression. Right? That's why in the hadith, Rasulullah said, Ittaqullah wa'adilu bayna awladikum. Now, the word walad in the Arabic language is a generic term that includes both boys and girls. The word walad, although colloquially speaking, you say, Ya walad ta'al, walad refers to a boy. But from a Shar'i perspective, it's ismu jins, inclusive of both the female and male gender. So walad can refer to both a boy and a girl. So when Rasulullah says over here, Ittaqullah wa'adilu bayna awladikum, be fair among your children, you give equal, 1 and 1. Right? I mean, in this case over here, both kids need a pair of shoes, for example. Need a pair of pants. You're not going to tell your son, you know what, here, you have $50 to buy your pants, and because you're a girl, you get $25. Go buy yourself something. No, yeah, subhanAllah. You got to be fair. Here, the condition of life is unlike that of death. It's different. Exactly. Oh, yeah.
basically what you're saying. If a person doesn't in his lifetime, whatever the division
Yeah.
is doing,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, let's put it this way. At the end of the day, he's not leaving much behind because whatever his assets
Yeah.
are, he divided up.
It's like, for example, let's say that the person, a brother, let's say he has a son and daughter. He bought them both a vehicle each. خلاص. It's وَعْدِلُوا بَيْنَ أَوْلَادِكُم. He gave 1 and 1, خلاص. And if he wants to give more even, he bought this one a house and that one a house. He bought this one a car and that one a car. He helped this one get married, helped that one get married. It's all equal in that case. Yeah. But after death, what remains of the money and the assets, that is the Bakr mithl Hadr. Yes. Barakallah. Yes. I have a question here for the sisters actually. What if we don't have children? It's an interesting question. So let's say, I'll explain this one over here. Let's say someone dies. Someone dies. Let's see how which pen works over here. Okay. Someone dies. Okay, so let's say a man dies and he leaves no heir. The heirs, who are we talking about in terms of the heirs? The list. Yeah, so the list of the men and the women. So no one's there. In this case, you look at something else. It's called Dhawil Arham. So Dhawil Arham, these are the heirs that are not given an initial consideration. So let's say someone died, leaving no heir, but left a daughter's daughter. A daughter's daughter was not inherited. She's not among the heirs. Because that daughter's daughter would inherit from someone else. It's a granddaughter, but not the one that would inherit. So a daughter's daughter is among Dawil Arham, close, but not close enough to inherit. Okay? So, in accordance to the A'imma, rahimahumullah, is not consensus. There's a khilaf, big khilaf in this. So, it's touching on, the madhab of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah. Likewise, you'll have the madhab of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, but it's a little bit different, the dynamic of this. But in the madhab of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, we have a very simple approach. It's called madhab Ahlut Tanzil. Madhab of Ahlut Tanzil, which means, and this is straightforward, a daughter inherits. Okay? We know a daughter inherits. But if she's not there, and she left behind a daughter, okay? She left behind a daughter. In this case, her daughter will be given her status and inherit as if she is in the place of the daughter. So whatever the daughter could receive is given to the daughter's daughter. That's in the case when there's not a single heir present. Okay? But if there's one heir even, an uncle that you don't like, because there's no take emotions out. If there's an uncle you don't like, and you have a daughter that you love very much, she doesn't get nothing. The uncle gets everything. The entire estate, A to Z, goes to the uncle. Okay? So, if there is no Dawil Arham, the person dies. In this case, we have what the A'imma say goes to Baytul Mal. You know what Baytul Mal is? Baytul Mal is like a charitable organization within Canada. A charitable organization, a charity. But I like what Imam Shafi'i conditioned this with, that you can give it to Bayt al-Mal in tabam, when there's no corruption within Bayt al-Mal. So you got when things are working right as they should be, you can give it to Bayt al-Mal, right? Otherwise, he considered Dawil Arham instead. But we're assuming that there's no Dawil Arham, not a single heir. The person died with no one that would potentially inherit from close or far. In this case, they give it to a charity that would, inshallah, work to benefit the ummah, inshallah. Yes.
So if for valid Sharia reasons a sibling is cut ties with, can we remove them from the inheritance?
I didn't understand.
If for valid Sharia reasons a sibling is cut ties with, can we remove them from the inheritance?
So they cut him off?
Yeah, they cut off the ties like the father has cut off.
Okay, see, like I said, this is a field that we don't know emotion. Get rid of the emotions of this thing. We ask, is he a Muslim?
He said for valid Sharia reasons.
Yeah, okay. So let's say the son was disobedient. Let's say the son was rude. Let's say the son was, I don't know, whatever.
They converted their religion. Let's say they
No, that's different. So valid Sharia reason, let's say he cut him off. No, he's saying he's cutting him off for valid Sharia reason. Let's say, in the example I'm thinking of in this case, is let's say the person during his life maybe beat up his father, yelled at his father, swore at his father, did something, but he's still Muslim, still prays Salah and everything else. Stole from his father, for example, right? So the father says, you know what? Out of my house, you're not living with me no more. You don't care my family name, you're done. That's emotion over here. He has a right, the father has right to do this. Khalas, done, finish. But when it comes to inheritance now, remove the emotion. Is he a Muslim? Yes or no? Yes, he is. He inherits. Okay? But in the case, let's say the person left Islam altogether. That's straightforward, simple. No. The question is he or she a Muslim? Done. Now, we have to be careful because some people might take this a bit too far. We do not promote takfir in any way, brothers and sisters. You might have someone who says, well, look, so-and-so doesn't pray salah. He's kafir. You can't make that assumption, a'udhu billah. Because for us, we believe that we're looking at the hukum tariq salah, the ruling of the one who abandons prayers. It's in one of two categories. One who abandons prayers on account of their disbelief in prayers itself, saying it's not part of the deen, I don't care about prayers. This, Allahu A'lam, is a minority. I haven't seen a person saying, I'm Muslim, but I hate prayers. I don't pray because I don't believe it to be from my deen. Have you ever come across a Muslim like this? Who says, I'm a Muslim, but I don't believe in prayers. Prayers is not part of my faith. You come across someone like this? He says, I'm Sunni Muslim too, by the way. You're not going to find someone who says, I'm Sunni Muslim, and then they claim this. It's impossible. So that's one category. If someone denies the wujub and the incumbency occurs, they would have lost the deen according to the majority. This is not the majority. This is unanimously among ulama, a person not a Muslim. But, and this is the majority reason people leave prayers is because they're lazy. They're tired. They're exhausted. They can't get to it. They know it's part of the deen, but they don't not really into it. But they believe in it. I'll pray later on. This person, according to the majority opinions, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and one of the two views of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah, and it's the view that's chosen by Imam ibn Qudama, rahimahullah, in al-Mughni, that this person is still a Muslim, but sahibu kabira. He's one who's done a major sin. Still Muslim, but he's doing a major sin. So you cannot come along and like people say that we have to bar. Like to give you an idea, I genuinely sometimes think that someone is looking for the slightest reason to kick someone out of the inheritance so they can get a bigger lion's share, and they're saying, well, he doesn't pray, he's not Muslim. So you gotta question the nobility of someone coming telling you this kind of thing at that moment, because we don't know why they promote it or why what we do. But then the thing is this, that subhanAllah, gotta be careful. So hukm takfir in this condition, we don't resort to it at all. We look at, is he a Muslim? Yes, khalas, done, finish. We accept it, and he's given a portion of the inheritance. That's it. Alhamdulillah.
We actually want to back to the state. Now, in small towns, involved immigration.
Yeah.
The expectation is that small business, cell phone repair shop, let's just say, his expectation is that cell phone repair shop be resolved and liquidated, and then.
I mean, after the person dies, he owns this, and it's up to the heirs. So that's what amruhum shura bainahum. They choose to do whatever they want. Yeah. They may choose to keep it running so that they can get if it's profitable. They might choose to do that. And this is the case with many people. They keep it running, and they all get a profit, a share of the profits. At times they say no, liquidate the whole thing, and we want the money right now. Straight up to them. They do it. Yeah. Yes, of course.
And in that case, because the same, even if they decide to keep the business, but they notice, oh, this thing's not doing so well.
Yeah.
And, a lot of debt. How is business debt?
See, this kind of question, you got to seek legal help in it, because for sure these have legal connotations. Yeah. From a Shara'i perspective, we said debts overall we pay them off, right? But from a legal point of view, there's certain things with the business and corporation debt we got to take care of first, and look at how that will be structured and how that will be taken care of. Maybe they go to a proposal, consumer proposal, whatever else, and then they kind of take care of some of it and forgive some. We don't know. Let that take its course, and whatever remains, we can then assume to be part of the estate that can be divided, inshallah. Inshallah. Barakallah feek. Yes, yeah.
Had wife, then had two son and daughter, and the son and daughter are getting the lion's share or I've seen in my culture many times like uncles or cousins,
Yeah.
other part of the extended family comes. So that means they're all
Son's there. Son is king, ya akhi. Even if the son, by the way, I got this question in Burnaby. How about if the son's only 1 month old, just born? Is a son? No emotion. Is he a son? Yes. He's the king. He blocks every area. Akhi. Done. Khalas.
I know we see it in Pakistani culture a lot. Usually the whole thing goes to the big brother, and then this guy is
Yes, you're right. Yes. Yeah, a lot of cultures.
this big brother, for example, will take 97 minutes, then you three brothers can do that. And this one is
Yes, that's not in accordance to the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. But to be fair over here, let's say, and this is how the Sharia, the fara'id or the inheritance division works within Islam. Let's say they recognize we love our older brother very much, we respect him very much, we want to give him whatever we can, And for that reason, we forego our rights willingly without being forced or coerced. We want to give them 90%, and we're happy with 10%. It's up to them. They've given up their rights willingly without being coerced. That's between them and Allah Azza wa Jalla. They can do that. So not issue.
Yeah, it's like this value.
Yeah, but then, like I'm just saying, in the best case scenario. But in the worst case scenario, this does not happen. In the worst case scenario, no one has a say because they're so afraid of the older brother because he acts in lieu of the father, and he basically says, "I do as it with it whatever I will." So in this case, he carries the sin as well. Yeah, that's yeah. Allah understand. Last question. Okay.
Um. So what?
Okay. So we have a question of the sister. If one of the children change their faith, are they still entitled to? No, this is in the hadith. لا يرث الكافر المسلم. It's in the hadith clearly that they would not inherit from each other. Yeah. Of course, there are more details over here, especially if someone comes from a non-Muslim family and they became Muslim, but the family is non-Muslim, right? And they want to give a certain amount of inheritance to the one who became Muslim. Can you accept that? There's a difference among ulama and scholars regarding that. The view that I take by is, and this is what I've seen happen all the time, is that when it comes to this specific scenario, amount of money is given, they can include it as a wasi or a gift, and they do that gladly. So yeah, I'll give this to you, because their division of inheritance in the West is not like what we do in Islam. There it's predetermined, certain amounts, percentage-wise or money-wise or asset-wise, they give to each person, done, khalas. So here something is given, it can be considered as a gift that is gifted, and they can write that down, and they've done that. For many cases I've seen they've done that, inshallah. So yes, barakallah. So the last one, inshallah, yes, okay.
Do these laws apply regardless of whether the shareholders are Muslims or not? For example, in a case where a son or daughter openly commits shirk and remains in that state until the father passes away.
Yeah, we've talked about this one. Yes, we talked about
There's
it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yes.
There's another question.
No, it's okay. It's good. Barakallah feek. So we'll end with this. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. I do ask of you one thing, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, hopefully this has motivated you to learn this knowledge. It's very interesting. And I would encourage you all, get that reward, as in those ahadith. Motivate yourselves to learn this, and may Allah Jalla wa ala give you all khair in dunya and in the akhirah. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Oh yeah, barakallah feekum.
Oh, comment section if you have any questions, put it on. Any questions?
Barakallah feekum. Jazakumullah khair.